Can you give us the names and ages of your children?
I have two daughters, Donna and Krista. Donna is about 50 and Krista is about 40. One was born in 1972 and one was born in 1965. Donna went to Johns Hopkins University and Krista went to Virginia State. And I was just saying about how they view things. And I remember when we used to drive home to Atlanta, and every now and then as we were going to Holiday Inn or some place for lodging, I would be crying, or not crying, but maybe see a tear in my eye as we was going in, and they would be, "What's the big deal, Dad? What's wrong?" And I was sharing with them because I remember the time when we couldn't go in Holiday Inn, and we'd have to stop along the side of the road, and we would have little brown bags with chicken, and then I see the bag now with grease all over the bag and whatever, stop along the side of the road, and if the kids had to use the bathroom, you'd have to find some bushes somewhere for them to go and use the bathroom, because even when you bought gas somewhere, they would not allow you to go in and use the bathroom, and you have to use the bathroom on the side of the road somewhere. And so here we are now, that we're able to go in this hotel. My family is able to go in here, get a nice room, use a restroom, do whatever we want to do, and that they did not have to experience that. And it is my thesis that one cannot really appreciate where you are if you don't know where you came from. And in many cases, we did not do a good enough job in teaching our young people where we came from. I remember my mother, when she'd be plaiting my sister's hair, she would tell my sister the stories, her struggles, and things that happened in her life. And my sister now is sort of the historian of our family. She got all the skeletons in the closet or whatever about our family, because she learned that when my mother was plaiting the hair and talking to her about what had happened to her. And now we don't share that with our young people. So when our young people go to Johns Hopkins and Yale and all of these great schools, they see it as a normal course of things. It is not a normal course of things. Someone paid the price for you to be there. It is my thesis that if you see a turtle on the fence, somebody helped him got there. You can get there by itself. And sometimes I'm not so sure if some of our young people don't appreciate the price that will pay for somebody for them to get there. I look at LeBron James and all of these great athletes and all of these contracts, $30 million, $25 million they're signing contracts. And no one ever called Jackie Robinson's name out, or people who got spit on and whatever, Yogi Berra, so that they can enjoy all of these privileges they enjoy now. But I, again, think it's because if you don't know where we came from, then you can't fully appreciate where you are. Mm-hmm. And we don't share that sometimes. So I think what we're doing may be an invaluable thing if someone would go back and listen to them or read them or whatever.
Yeah, that's a great point. With you being part of the NAACP when you got to Fairfax, let's talk about how you got involved with the Fairfax chapter of the NAACP.
Well, Lily Morarity, as a matter of fact, I just buried her. Lily Morarity was a member of my church at First Baptist Church in Vienna. She was a community activist par none. She was a great lady. She was with the NAACP. Matter of fact, we called her Miss NAACP. And she was a member of my church. And the leadership role came up for president. And she just insisted that I needed to run for president. I said, "No, Lily, I don't need to run for president. I got enough thing to do already." So she kept going on and on. So I relented and ran and won. And I did 4 years. And then I did another 4 years, about 4.5 years, because I did another half of another term working with the NAACP. And when I got there, I discovered that there were some changes that I could make by being president of the NAACP. So I was able to make some changes while I was there.
So what changes did you make?
Well, we worked on some things when I was president. One of the things was education, because it is my thesis that children from grade K through about third grade, they learn to read, and after that, they read to learn. So if you can keep kids can't read, then therefore that I call that educational slavery, because if they can't read with comprehension, then thereafter they will not learn anything thereafter. And so we started talking about pre-K. We worked on trying to get pre-K. We worked on the gifted and talented program. That was one of the things that I think we had some impact on. The gifted and talented, we looked at the numbers, and the minorities were very low represented in the gifted and talented, particularly at TJ, Thomas Jefferson High School. And so we said, well, let's look at this and see, is this intellectual? The reason why they're not there? Is it because they're not performing like the other kids are performing, that they're not there? So we start looking at the way you get there, and the way you got there at the time was you have to have the grades, you have to have a recommendation from a teacher, and you have to have a psychological exam. Well, we discovered the psychological exam cost $90. You had to get a psychiatrist to do it for $90. And we went back and said, why do we need that? I mean, why is that available? Because what we discovered, the minority kids couldn't pay the $90. So we worked with them, and it was tooth and nails, and got them to move the $90. And we then discovered more minorities got in the gifted and talented, and 5 years thereafter we looked at it, and they were doing well. So that was done. We also tried to get more minorities on the school board, because we concluded that we can do better for ourselves than somebody else can do for us. And we started going to schools and to churches and try our very best to talk to young people about preparing yourself to run for the school board. And I think we got that changed a little bit, got some people on the school board. We started talking with the superintendent about teaching methodology. At the time it was Dominic was the superintendent, and he contended when I would go and talk with him, and again, this is a little bit of power that he gave me by being president of the NAACP. I go and talk to the superintendent of the school. The fact that Fairfax would always rank number 1 and number 2 in the nation in terms of achievement, and when I went and talked to him, he would always say, well, look at the numbers, Smith. So he was satisfied with people being at the bottom and celebrating those who were at the top. And I said, well, that may be the case, but why not we give the same resources that you give in McLean? You get the same resources on Bayless Crossroad and in Route 1. And he was contending the best teachers went to McLean, and the lesser teachers went to Bayless Crossroads, to Route 1, or whatever. I said, well, but at the end, they're all going to have to competing for the same schools, the same jobs, same careers, or whatever. So I would rather the kid on Bayless Crossroads and Route 1 get a C in the most current courses than to get an A in a remedial class. You got all these remedial classes here on Route 1 and in Bayless Crossroad, but in the end, that's not what they're going to, the PSA and the SAT, all of those are not geared toward the remedial classes. They're geared toward these classes that you're teaching the kids in McLean and other areas. Mm-hmm. And so we fought that battle with him. I'm not sure how much progress we made, but we fought that battle with him, because he was telling me that there are some kids, well, I'm not sure if he really, I won't put that on him, but his actions sometimes did not affirm the fact, what we believe, to have high expectation for all kids and that all kids can learn.
Mm-hmm. You talked also about problems with teachers not calling on black kids.
Yes, we had kids in my school. When I was pastor, I used to go to school sometime and with the kids, and this one kid, a lady, young girl, had I went to school with her, and the teacher asked to turn in her homework, and she reached in the backpack and pulled out homework. It was all crumbled and grease on it. I said, what you going to do with that? She said, I'm going to turn it in. I said, what do you mean going to turn it in? She said, I'm going to turn it in. This is my homework. I said, no, you're not. You can't turn in that. Well, she'll take it. I said, no, whether she'll take it or not, you can't turn that in. Why don't you take that back home and you work on it and you bring it back tomorrow, not crumble, no grease and stuff on it, and no erasures, but it's much better than what you have. So she did that. Another occasion, I went with one of our students to class because the student was lamenting to me, and I'd heard this before from some of the other students. Reverend, we raise our hand in class, but the teacher never called on us. And so I went myself and sat in the class, and I noticed that the teacher, and I'm not sure if this was by design or just happened, but the teacher would not call on the minority kids. She'd call on the white kids, but not the minority kids. And my thesis is that if you ran over by a car, whether by accident or incident, you're still dead. And so the kids, how do you now feel about yourself that you raise your hand because you know the answer, but the teacher never calls on you? And then when she do call on you, it's in a kind of demeaning way. I had this one student, I think she was one, and I won't call it school. She was one student in this class of about 30 kids. She was the only black kid in the class. And they were discussing about slavery. And the teacher asked her to tell them about how to feel about slavery.